Hey, it's Steph and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a DIY renter-friendly beadboard installation tutorial. So if you've been wanting to do this too, this is the video for you. I will be showing you everything that I'm using, step-by-step instructions on how you can achieve this as well for your apartment. And we don't want to do any sort of permanent changes, so this is perfect to get the architectural details that would come in a home that you could do in a home that you owned, but in your current rental apartment or rental home. I'll be showing you all the products that I'm using. I'll link those below for you. So if you want to see how you can achieve this look as well, then just keep watching. Okay, so this is the space that we are working with. And as you can see, I've already just sort of leaned up the piece of beadboard that I got from Home Depot. This is a 3x4 panel and it was a really good price. I think it was like just under $13. I'm going to be using, you could have probably guessed it, command strips. I got large ones. They say they hold 16 pounds, so I'm sure that this will do okay. And then I also got this piece of trim from Home Depot. This was in the colonial section. They have different styles of trim that you can choose from, so that's kind of a personal preference. I just thought this was just enough detail to sort of finish off the top ledge. There will be some tools that we need to use. I'm going to be using a handsaw because I don't have a power saw. I'm going to be using a drill and some other things, so I will show you everything that you need as we go along, but first step is going to be clearing out the space so we have room to work with. First step is to create a workspace. So for me, I'm just doing it right in front of the wall I'm placing the beadboard on, but if you're, working in a larger space, you can do it in the garage or somewhere where you're okay to make some mess because there is going to be a little bit of cleanup involved. Okay, so I've moved everything out of the way. And now I'm going to do some cleaning. It's always a good idea to vacuum and, dust behind things when you haven't moved them in a while. So I'm going to take advantage of this moment and I'm going to vacuum and wipe down. And I'm also going to wipe down the wall because it's always good when you're using command strips to wipe down the surface so that they stick better. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Just doing a quick vacuum and prepping the work area. The instructions for the command strips recommend using rubbing alcohol to wipe down your surface before you start sticking them on, and that will just help make sure that it's nice and clean. So use a mask when doing this because I got smacked in the face with all that rubbing alcohol scent and that was very unpleasant. That's something I'd recommend doing that I did not do. Next, I'm just going to wipe down the beadboard panels I got from Home Depot because there's some dirt and dust on them from in the store. So I'm just going in every little nook and cranny and trying to get those nice and clean. Okay, so I'm ready to get started with putting this up on the wall, and I'm just going to take the command strips, and I'm sure you've used command strips before, but if you haven't, the kinds that have these sort of scratchy bits, you want to rip them apart. And then you're going to take, this is the back with the sticker on it, you're going to take those and press them together, and you're going to hear this like clicking noise, and that means that it's binding together. So I'm going to go ahead and do that first, and then I'll put them on the actual beadboard, and then we'll put that on the wall. Okay, I've clicked all these together. And I'm going to start from the right side and I'm going to work my way over to the left. Now, one thing I want to show you. When you're installing the beadboard, it's going to come in these like panels, or you're going to have a big one and you might have to cut it down to size, however tall you want it to be. But I just have the 3x4 panels here. And as you can see on the right side of the panel, it has this little notch. And on the left side, it doesn't. So you're going to want to make sure you pay attention to that when you're installing it, that you want to have this nice continuation of the pattern in the wainscoting or the beadboard. You can also flip these around and they can be, on the opposite side, but just keep it consistent from left to right. I'm going to start in this corner and I'm going to put the command strips on the back side of this, and then we'll stick it up on the wall. Okay, now we're starting to put the command strips on the back side of the beadboard, and I'm doing 3 rows, 1 on each edge and then 1 down the center and vertically, and they're about a 1/2 inch from the edge. And now I'm just going to line it up in the corner since I'm starting over there. Chances are you won't have a random cable sticking down, so ignore that and just line it up into the corner edge. And then I'm also going to take a level and make sure that that's nice and straight. Now we're moving on to the next panel, and I have to cut out a hole for this outlet here. So a hack I'm doing is removing the outlet plate, and then I'm reversing it and screwing it back on. And then I'm taking some paint and I'm just painting around the edges. And then I'm gonna take the panel and I'm gonna press it up against that outlet plate, and it's gonna leave a mark exactly where you need to cut out the hole. Now, do as I say and not as I do here. This is a total disclaimer. If you have a jigsaw, that would be much better than what I was doing. Of course, I only have a power drill, so I drilled out some holes, and even these were probably too big. I would recommend starting smaller and then going up in size so you don't rip any of the beadboard. You'll see later. Definitely use a jigsaw if you have one. If not, I mean, this worked for me, but not gonna lie, I did cut myself. It was a total nightmare. It was not very safe at all. So just be careful when you're doing this part. Make sure that you have the right tools, or borrow some tools from a neighbor or a friend or a parent or whoever you can. It'll make your life a lot easier. This was really frustrating and took a lot of time. It took like much longer than it could have if I just had used the right tools in the first place. So that's my disclaimer. Be careful. The thing that you need to make note of, and just like a fair warning ahead of time, if the way that I'm doing it, it's not going to allow the outlet cover to be flush with the outlet box, because we're not extending the box further out how you could do if you were doing this like professionally. So I'm gonna link another video if you want to get more technical with it, that shows exactly what you can do to extend the outlet box further out and make it more flush. That's not something I did. It's probably something that you should do just for safety reasons. So I'll leave that link below for you as another resource to look at. That didn't go as well as I had hoped. I completely like ripped off a chunk of the beadboard. So I'm gonna see how I can salvage it. It looks pretty bad. Can you see that? Oof. Well, lesson learned. Use the proper tools when doing this project. All right, we're just gonna move on. So I'm just gonna glue this piece back on that came off. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. Luckily, I'm putting that bench right over the outlet, so it's not gonna show. In the end, I was able to camouflage that pretty well. So if that happens to you, I'll show you later what it looks like. But now we're just gonna put on this next panel with that hole cut in it, and again, just lining that up along the right edge of the first panel, pressing everything down nice and firm, and making sure that the command strips are all secure against the wall. Making sure it's nice and straight with the level as well. And this is kind of what the seam looks like. So not too bad, but we'll fill that in later. Okay, for me, this is gonna be my last piece, and I'm just measuring how much I need to cut off for it to fit in that section. And I'm just using a handsaw for this portion. This is basically like really thick cardboard. So when you're just doing a straight cut like this, it is super easy to cut through and wasn't difficult at all. Again, using a power saw would have been like much faster, but it's totally doable with a handsaw here. And of course, measure according to your needs. I'm not gonna leave any measurements up because ours are not gonna be the same. So just fitting that on and pressing that down, and then making sure it's nice and level. Okay, I got all the beadboard up on the wall. It's a bit of a tiny bit of a gap in there, but I think it's okay. So now the next thing that I'm going to do is put on the top trim piece, and then that's it. Okay, so we're moving on to the last major portion of this project, and that's fitting the trim. Now for the trim, the most important thing to do here is overlap the edge ever so slightly from the bottom of the trim to the top of the beadboard, and this is going to make sure that you don't have any gap there, and it'll give a nice seamless transition between the trim and the beadboard. I actually had to do this twice because I realized later when I had put it on that there was that gap there, and so I just slid it down ever so slightly. And of course I got 2 pieces of trim to fit my area, so I'm just going to cut down the last piece here and sand off any rough edges, but again, measure according to your needs. I'm only doing this one area, so I'm not going to do any corner pieces, but if you do have a corner and you're putting up the trim, then you're going to need to do a 45-degree cut, and I'll put up an image of an example of what that cut should look like. So since I'm not including it, I just wanted to show you what you should do. Okay, we're almost done, but I just want to fill this gap with some joint compound. So I have it out here, and also see if I can try and salvage that a little bit, and maybe I'll fill up that gap too. The reason I'm going to use joint compound is because it is water soluble, so later on when you move out, you can just remove any of that with a wet rag and it will come off pretty easily, as opposed to using something like a caulk, which we would probably normally use for a permanent installation. Now here you can see that the outlet cover is not flush because we have put on the beadboard, so just know that that's what it's going to look like, unless you follow that other tutorial that I'll link down below for you on another way to extend the box out. But for my situation, I'm not really even going to be using this outlet that much, and it's underneath the bench, so I didn't really mind that the separation is there. Just know that that's what it's going to look like if you don't do that part. And this is the next morning. As you can see, you can't even tell where any of those seams are. It really disappears, and even over the outlet, it doesn't look that bad. Something I'm not going to do for my project, but you could absolutely do, is paint this any accent color that you want. I'm not going to for this portion of the project, maybe later on. Now I'm just going to start styling and putting it all back together, but look how much better the whole space looks. It's added a lot of detail to this room, which is just what I was looking for. Now it's not super flat, but it has some sort of architectural element that just really adds and is a nice backdrop for the rest of your decor. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. Leave any questions you have down below and I'll do my best to answer or point you in the right direction. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more upcoming content. I'm going to be doing some different topic videos coming up. I'm really excited. I've really been enjoying YouTube, and I'm really grateful for everyone that's watched my video. So thank you so much, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.